On the plank series that we're going to be doing here, we primarily look at 3-point pulls and 2-point pulls. Simply means that we have 3 points of contact with the ground or 2 points of contact with the ground. I want to try and keep my weight shifted as far forward as possible. You don't want to really see somebody hike their hips up or shift their weight backwards too much. You want to try and have them keep the shoulders in the push-up position here over the wrist as much as possible, and the weight shifted forward. My hips are level. I want to try and keep them from sagging down towards the floor, and I want to maintain a good posture throughout the technique, whether or not I'm going from a plank position. Plank position is just with my forearm resting on the ground, or that push-up position, and the weight shifted forward. When I'm in that plank position, I want to try and keep the shoulder over the elbow this time as opposed to over the wrist. Control the speed of the movement, control the technique. Use a band that you can do, good repetitions with through a full range of motion. And challenge yourself. These are only simple variations of these two plank and lateral plank exercises that I'm going to demonstrate. So really you're only limited by your creativity. When I go into the lateral plank or the lateral 2-point pulls, simply keep the shoulder over the wrist, stay stiff as a board, and try and extend the legs so that the leg closest to the ground stays off of the ground. There's never any contact with the ground. And then change up the difficulty of the exercise, go from that forearm rest position to a 1-point rest with just the hand on the ground. With the resisted push-ups, I've taken the band and looped it under my thumbs, secured that to the ground, and put the band up under my armpit and across my back and over onto the other side. Maintain good push-up technique. Use a band that's challenging, not impossible, and as you start to get stronger, increase the resistance level of the band. With the chest press, I've just attached the band to a stationary object. I step in the band and I just do a ground-based chest press. What I want to do is, as I extend that out away from my body, I want to control the movement. I want to control the speed of the movement, control my body position. My knees stay slightly flexed. My trunk is leaning forward a little bit so I don't get pulled backwards. And I want to control, the speed of the band coming in and out. If I need to, I can make it a little bit more challenging by going into a single arm chest press. Movement technique is the same, I just change up the dynamic of the drill. I can also go into a single arm chest press with a split stance. I could also do that with the regular chest press too, just split my stance up. But if I need to, those are easy ways to change up the difficulty of the drill, or just use a heavier band. On the chest fly, simply widen out the grip on the band, and I'm drawing the band towards the midline of my body. Just pretend you were wrapping your arms, say, around like a big stability ball. I want to try and draw the band in and control the band as it goes back towards the object that I have it attached to. I could do this also with a single arm fly. This makes the drill that much more challenging. And if I want to increase the difficulty of it, I could go from a split stance, or I could increase the resistance of the band itself. So make sure you have great technique during this and control every aspect of the movement. On the reverse fly, I can go again in a square stance and a split stance. I have a fairly wide grip on the band, and I'm just drawing my shoulder blades in towards the midline of my body. Keep your elbows slightly flexed on here. Band should stay at about chest height, and control every aspect of the movement as you draw the band in towards your chest and then as you draw it out away from your chest. With the shoulder punches, I can do from a split stance or a square stance. Band starts right by my shoulder, and I'm going to punch the band across my body to my immediate right or left. As I reach and punch across my body, that opposite foot, you'll notice, will pivot towards the direction that I'm punching. For the next series of exercises, it's really just a big shoulder circuit. We're going to start out with some shoulder raises or shoulder flexion, whatever you'd like to call it. Keep your feet square, trunk up nice and tall. I want to try and keep good posture. Control the band as I pull it out away from my body, and then as it's drawn in towards my body. I can transition then into shoulder extensions. I'm just going to keep the same exact position. Now I'm just reversing the movement. I'm pulling the band down towards my body as opposed to pulling it away from my body. From the shoulder extensions, now I can transition into a shoulder movement where I'm pulling the band in towards my body. This is called shoulder adduction. So my position doesn't change. Feet are square. If I want to go split stance, I could go split stance, but you'll notice I always control the band. I never at any point in time, regardless of the speed of the movement, let the band control me. From that, then I can go into a movement which some of you might call shoulder abduction or a lateral raise. It doesn't matter what you call the drill, just look at the positioning of my body, how I'm holding myself, and how the movement is being driven. On the curls, I'm going to stand on the band like I was doing previously with the squats. Keep my elbows tight to my side. My wrists stay neutral. Try and keep your wrists tight. Don't let them flop all over the place on this drill. And curl the band up towards your chest. My stance is still relaxed. I don't want to try and stay stiff-legged. I don't want to be too tense or stand too rigid. If I want to go from the curls where I'm standing on it to putting the curls on a piece of equipment or a stationary object as such, I can do that with that door attachment. If I need to, I can reverse my grip here, so go into reverse curls. Again, I still stand on it the same way I was doing previously with the regular curls, or I can put it on a piece of a stationary equipment like I have here on the soccer net. Any point in time, you can do the curls with 2 arms, or I can go over to single arm. You're really only limited by your creativity on each drill. But when you're standing on the band, really be careful to make sure that it's secure underneath your foot. Never step off the band while in the process of doing an actual exercise. Single arm curl is just a variation. You're only limited by your creativity on each of these drills. On the tricep extension, you'll notice that I do a few different variations. On here is just a 2-arm tricep extension. My upper arm stays tight to my body, and I'm just pulling the band down to the outside of my thigh. I can vary this up by then facing in the opposite direction, extending my arms out in front of my body, and then just straightening out my elbow or extending my elbow. You'll notice on here there is a little bit of slack that's bouncing around, so if you don't want to have that slack bouncing around in your face, you can just grab the Superband, double it up under your hand so that it's not bouncing all over the place. You'll notice I do that in the single arm tricep extension here. I just group it up so that it's not flapping all over, and I do my single arm tricep extension. I can do the same movement again, just reversing my direction, extending my arm out in front of me, and then doing the tricep extension that way. With the upright rows, I'm standing on the band again. The band's in front of me at about hip height. Taking 2 hands and I'm pulling the band or drawing it up towards the top of my chest or underneath my chin. Band stays tight to my body. My elbows are pretty much either higher than my wrist or at a level even with my wrist, but I don't want to see my elbows dropping below my wrists. I can put the band with the door attachment on a piece of equipment or a stationary object, or if I need to, I can do the band upright row with a single arm. Again, changing up the position that we hold it with either 1 hand or 2 hands, or increasing the resistance of the band will increase the difficulty of the drill. And I can again do this while I'm standing on it or with the equipment attached to a stationary object or another piece of equipment. The next series of exercises here are some diagonal pulls and diagonal chops. On the diagonal pulls, I just want to try and get a nice rhythm going, take the band from the waist and pretend I was pitching it or throwing it up over my shoulder. I want to try and keep the movement though nice and tight, and I'm always in control. From that, if I wanted to do a diagonal pull, I could transition into, say, a diagonal chop, which is basically the same exact motion, but now I'm just drawing the band in towards my hip as opposed to away from my hip. But I really want to try and keep a nice tight rotation on this movement. And as I chop or as I pull, as I go towards my opposite hip, that opposite leg will pivot. And it might be a slight pivot, it might be a little bit more exaggerated of a pivot. On here I can attach the equipment to a stationary object, and I can do alternating pulls. I could also do the same thing with alternating chops as well. But I sit my hips down and accelerate up, all right, with the band over my shoulder. So it's actually not me just yanking on the band with my arms. It's getting my whole body involved. I sit down into a little squat and accelerate that Superband up over my shoulder. It's a very long name, but it really is just me varying up my foot position. Now I just do a single arm diagonal chop down to the outside of my ankle. I could take it to my ankle, my knee, my hip, whatever you feel most comfortable with.